Investor, educator, and author Robert Kiyosaki has changed millions of lives all over the world. His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 5 years. We all know that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing, and Social Security and Medicare are in a financial mess. And just affording to live is getting expensive. So how does a person get ahead financially? The answer is raising your financial IQ and having your money work for you. Here's Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dad's Teach to Be Rich.
What I'd like to go into really quickly for a while is the E, S, the B, and the I. And as you may notice, that one of the ways I am successful is because I did very poorly in school. And because I did poorly in school was I learned to cooperate and hang around, like I said, smart people. So one of the reasons I am successful is I'm smart enough to not hang around with what I call losers. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but my time is very important to me. How many people in this room hang out with people that actually bring you down? Good. You know, that you may love them, and nothing saying is right or wrong with that, but I need to get on with my life and my work. So that's why I've been very careful who I spend my time with. So before we bring Sharon up here, and we're going to talk about this quadrant really quickly. Are you ready? Let's have a hand for Sharon, please. Now, Sharon is a CPA, no one anything with a CPA. Would you mind telling them the difference between E's, S's, B's, and I tax-wise? The 43 Tax Act and the 86 Tax Reform Act.
Absolutely. How many of you would like to pay fewer taxes? Okay, then you have to move to the right side of the quadrant. In 1943, employees lost half their paycheck before they saw it. It was the Withholding Act. So all of you who have been employees or are employees know that little word called net pay. You think you're making one thing, but you're actually making your net pay because the government takes its share before you get yours. So you're not really able to spend what you earn. You earn it, you get taxed, and then hopefully you can live on what you get what's left.
Yeah, the 43 Act was called the Current Tax Payment Act, and basically it meant the government gets paid first. But as a CPA, can you do anything for an E?
There's absolutely no tax planning that an employee can do that will help you get to the right side of the quadrant.
And the reason I wanted Sharon to start first is because taxes are our single largest expense. Like I say, in 2005, I will spend more, pay more in taxes than most people will earn in their lifetime. So I'm not against paying taxes. I just want to pay as little as possible. Right?
Right. And then there was the Tax Reform Act of 1986. And it was something that eliminated what few tax benefits were still left for highly paid professionals, doctors, lawyers, architects, accountants. It took it away.
The A students, you know, justifiably so, got theirs taken away, you know. And the C students are intact here.
However, this is now my line, the A students, the E's and the S's, if they are smart, will start working on the right side of the quadrant, starting a part-time business, buying that piece of real estate, because that's how you build wealth. On the left side of this quadrant is you working for money. So the only option is another job or more clients, and the more successful you become, the less time you have. On the right side, the people on the right side, the business owners, the investors, they wrote the tax laws. So the tax laws were written for the rich, and therefore they benefit the rich. So what you want to do is to start acting like a rich person and doing what the rich do. And that's what this program is all about.
So can I add one more thing? And please listen to this, because it's one of the hardest things for people to understand. When I say work for free, these people go psychotic because they have, I must do something to get paid. They will not work for free. Over here, people work for free because they're not working for the same kind of income. It is one of the toughest things to understand. I'd rather work, most of my friends will work for free simply because they'd rather have a different kind of income here. These people are entrepreneurs, and these people here are worker bees. And they have a different mindset when it comes to that paycheck. And if you can let go of the idea of needing that paycheck, which I don't expect too many people to understand yet, because so many people are so needy for that money that they cannot move here. It's really this horrible feeling inside. So if you can work for free over here, you'll actually get richer and pay less taxes. It's really an irony of the whole thing.
And earlier, Robert said, the left side, these people are working for income, the paycheck. Okay, on the right, people are working to build assets that generate income,
right,
where their money is working for them. And that's the biggest difference, and that's the way to wealth. And you can be operating in two different quadrants, but you must start operating on the right side of the quadrant.
This is where the tax breaks are. I can pay zero taxes. And like I said earlier, the problem with the 401k, when you put a 401k as a passive investor, you're still taxed like an employee. I mean, why would you want to do that? It makes no sense to me. But they don't tell you that in school. They say 401k is a good idea. As a rich person, 401k actually makes no sense. It's too risky. My banker won't lend me money. I can't get insurance on it. And in fact, the government taxes me on it. It's ridiculous. It is one of the most ridiculous plans I've ever seen, personally. If you're going to be rich. If you want to be poor, 401k is great. Knock yourself out. Have a good time, you know.
When you pull out that income, you pay the highest tax rate. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. Okay? So, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Give her a hand. I want to bring Michael Lecter up, her husband, and Michael Lecter, may or may not know this, he is one of the most influential and successful and most famous patent attorneys or intellectual property attorneys in America.
Well, thank you, sir.
And I'd like to show you why I hired Michael years and years ago. Was this here, back in the 70s, was my first multi-million-dollar project. What it is a little shoe pocket. I designed it in the 70s. They went on the running shoes like this, and you put inside here a key, some money, and it also came with an ID card in case you drop dead that could identify the body. Because jogging had just started, and I designed this product like this, and it went on the shoe, and this was the first prototype of it. This is a prototype. We sat there with a little sewing machine, we chopped it up and all this, and then an ID card in case you, this is a production model here. But the reason I went to see Michael first this time when I designed the cash flow game is very simply because back then when I designed this game, this product in the 70s, I didn't have the $7,000 to hire a patent attorney. So I figured since I was good at marketing, I could outgun the market. And so I came out to market with this product. I made Playboy magazine, Gentleman's Quarterly, Runner's World magazine. My two partners and I were in our 20s. We became multi-millionaires, went straight to the top. There was only one problem, is we didn't protect it. And soon after we came out with this, my nylon and Velcro surfer wallets took off also. The whole business exploded on us. And because we were successful, the crooks came in, or the copycats came in. Well, it's not their fault, it's my fault, because I didn't see Michael at first. Does that make sense, you guys here? For $7,000, I could still be a millionaire. But we went straight up, and we went straight down trying to save $1 million. So this time, when I designed the cash flow board game, I walked into Michael's office with this, and he's the first person I see. And this here is the early prototype of this game here, what you see here. And this is what I walked in to see Michael about, and his reputation went way ahead of him, and I decided to hire the very best I could find. And that's Michael Lecter.
Thank you. Well, we've got to put this into perspective.
Okay.
Now, Robert walks into my office, and I'm semi-retired at this point, but I had the big corner office with the big desk and the walnut on the wall, and in comes Robert, and he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, shorts, and he says something like,
retired.
and we hit it off right away. And he says something really lofty, like, I'm on a mission. I'm going to raise the financial well-being of mankind. And I'm looking at this guy, and he cleans up pretty well. But I mean, you should have seen him. And I'm going, okay, well, I hear you. So what do we got? And he pulls out this roll of paper, and he spreads it out on my desk, and it was the prototype for the cash flow game. And you know what? Mission accomplished. He has actually raised financial well-being of mankind.
Because this game's now in how many different languages?
Oh, Lord. I've lost track. 30 or 40 languages, is that right?
15 games, 44 books.
15 games, the books are in 44 different languages. Anyway. Now,
And just to let you know how far it went is my books, the Chinese Communist government recommends 20 U.S. books. We have 2 out of the 20 they recommend. So that's how much it's changed.
and the books are referred to as the Purple Storm. You see a book in black and purple, what's the first thing you think? Rich Dad. And that didn't happen by accident.
That was all by design. You know.
That's called a trademark, and you're building your reputation. Again, you're building intellectual property assets.
This is the point is that, Michael, your book here is this, is protecting a number one asset. And when people says it takes money to make money, that's not really quite true because your greatest asset are your ideas. And so I took the word Rich Dad and we made it a brand, a trademark. How much would you say Rich Dad's worth today?
Oh, wow. In the hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's how much the name is worth because Michael protected it all over the world.
And what did it mean 10 years ago?
Nothing.
You had a wealthy father.
Yeah. So when somebody says it takes money to make money, they really don't know what they're talking about. But you have to operate like a B, not an E or an S here.
You build an asset and then you leverage that asset. If your contribution to a business is a piece of intellectual property, some intangible asset that may have cost you very little cash out of hand, your return on investment can be infinite.
It's like the name Coca-Cola. The plant and equipment is worth about $8 billion. The word Coca-Cola is worth about $80 billion. How much do you think Google is worth as a name today? It's in
Harley
billions.
Davidson.
Harley Davidson. They're worth billions. Apple, billions. So those are some of the differences between rich people and poor people. As Sharon said, these guys are working hard and these guys are thinking hard. There's a difference.
So you build the asset, you protect it, you establish an exclusive right to it, and then you can leverage it into a business.
Or you can do what I did and make somebody else very rich. And we're very smart, but we lost it all to save $7,000.
You got to remember, the marketplace is not like a sprint. It's not a race. You can't run faster than the competition. I mean, it's more like a relay race, except the competition can come and grab the baton out of your hand.
So, thank you. The next person I want to bring up, you can stay up here, is Blair Singer, because Blair does a lot of work with these two products. Like I said, the first thing my rich dad said to me when I was going to become a B in 1974 was I had to learn how to sell, and secondly is how to build a team, right? These are Blair's 2 books.
Absolutely. And how many people in this room have ever had at least what you would consider to be at least one, like Michael says, at least one good idea? How many people have ever had more than one? But how many people have ever met somebody that had a good idea, didn't make any money with it? How many know somebody like that intimately well? And see, and one of the things, and when we did the advisor series, one of the first advisor books was Sales Dogs, because the #1 skill in business is you got to be able to sell. How many people here have ever tried to get your point of view across to somebody else and they totally didn't get it? How many people realize it was their problem? You see, and so one of the things that keeps people from moving from the left to the right side as a business owner is 3 primary skills. #1, you got to be able to sell. All the great ideas, all the great products in the world do no good unless you can communicate it to somebody else and get them to take action on that. How many people would like to be able to know how to do that? How many would like to just be able to do it at home? You see, and so it's more, the reason I say that is it's not just, formally as a business skill, it's a life skill. The thing that I work with businesses all over the world we've known each other for what, 20 years? Work with businesses all over the place. And what pains me is entrepreneurs, people really want to go out and make something happen, but they can't get anybody to come to them with any kind of cash to exchange for the idea or the service.
They can't sell.
They can't sell it. They can't sell it. And so that's number one. Number two is, along with sales, in order to be, the difference over here, these guys work mostly on their own. I know this intimately well, okay? But the idea is if you're going to build a business, you got to build a championship team. And the reason sales is number one, because it's not just about selling product to somebody else, it's also about selling why somebody would want to be on your team. Because if you can't communicate that, why would anybody want to play on your team? So that's what we do. Is we work, the reason for those two books, the ABCs, you got them over there?
Right here.
Yeah. Sales Dogs, which basically says that you don't have to be an attack dog to be successful in sales. Everybody can sell. It's not rocket science, although when I ask, how many people here, by show of hands, how many people here genuinely like to sell? Show of hands. Okay, good. How many people, when I say the word sales, you get a knot in your stomach? See, that's when you ask the average American, average person, sell something or drink a bottle of Clorox, and half of them would go for the Clorox. But the truth of it is, has anybody here ever met a 5-year-old that couldn't sell? If you haven't had that experience, I'll loan you my 3-year-old and 10-year-old. But the truth is, it's a critical skill. If you want to build wealth, if you want to build a business, got to be able to sell and be able to attract a great team, set a code of honor, a set of rules in place so that you make sure that everybody's on the same agenda. How many people have ever been part of a group where everybody had their own agenda? You see, and one of the things that's held Rich Dad together all these years is that Robert, Sharon, Kim, myself, all the advisors have a very strict code, set of rules, what it takes to be on the team.
So I'll give a plug to an organization that's called the network marketing industry. Some people call it multi-level and all this. And I wrote a book to support them. I'm not in the business. I don't make my money that way. But it's called The Business School for People Who Want to Help People. And the main reason I recommend network marketing is I had the benefit of going to the Xerox Corporation to learn how to sell, professional sales training. Most people don't have that ability. So a network marketing company, they're training you to be a business owner. And the number one skill they train you in is how to sell, how to communicate. They don't like to say that because most people have this negative attitude towards it, but it's a great training ground. The problem with getting a job with Xerox is if you can't sell, they fire you. And one of the things about network marketing companies, if you can't sell, at least they'll work with you. But you have to put in your 2 bits here. So that's why I wrote this book, The Business School, and support an industry that's actually teaching the same skills my rich dad said were important to me with business skills. So if you're going to move from E to S to B and I think you have to learn how to sell. And I'm a very shy person, but I actually learned how to do that. So thank you, Blair. The last 2 people I want to bring up, I'm bringing up Sharon and Garrett really quickly because they do this little shtick for me, which is important. And the reason I want them up here is this, is the big mistake that people make is they take legal advice from accountants and then they take accounting advice from attorneys. So, would you talk about that?
Well, Garrett got a head start earlier because he was up here without me, and I was itching to come up and protect the accounting profession. It is absolutely essential that you get the right advice from the right advisor. It sounds simple, but there are accountants that do tell you to do everything on your Schedule C. Find a new accountant. I couldn't agree more. They are not helping you protect your family's future.
If they say to you, become a sole proprietorship or a partnership, find a new person. They're giving you bad asset protection advice, right?
That's absolutely correct. But your accountant and your tax advisors are essential to allow you to build your business in the right direction from a tax perspective. Attorneys should not be telling you how to do your taxes. You have to use the right advisor for the right advice and find a good advisor who will give you good advice. Both very important skills. You don't want me doing your legal work, guaranteed. These days you probably don't want me doing your tax work either. It's been a while since I did a tax return. But you must get competent tax advice. It helps you grow your business quicker. Many of you in this room right now are paying too much in taxes because you're not getting competent tax advice. I did, even I, and I knew this stuff. Got excellent tax advice, and we were able to structure ourselves in a better format to save income tax because there are only a few people that can stay current on everything. Exactly the same way. Garrett came to us and said, you need to change where you're doing your incorporations. Wyoming is now the place you need to be going. I'm not going to argue with him. He's the expert. Thank you, Garrett, because it protects us. And when I have somebody come up at events and talk to me and ask me legal questions, I send them to Garrett. And when Garrett has somebody come up and ask tax questions, I think he sends them to me. Your turn.
You're absolutely right, Sharon. You don't want me doing your tax return. Please, I am not a tax attorney. I don't do taxes, but I do work really well with CPAs and people who understand the tax system. And that's what you want to do. That's one of Robert's messages. It's a team sport. Business and investing are a team sport, and two of the key members of your team are going to be your attorney and your CPA. And what I do in my practice is frequently I will get on the phone with the client, the CPA, and myself, and we'll have everybody there on the same phone call. We don't need to be in the same room. In some cases, we're talking on a conference call with people spread around the country. But you need to have those three people on the phone at the same time. What happens so often, and Sharon, you've seen this, is an attorney will say, that's a tax question, go talk to your CPA. And the CPA will say, well, that's a legal question, go talk to your attorney. And you play this phone tag game and nothing ever gets done. So by having everybody on the phone at the same time, in as little as half an hour, you can make decisions and move forward to protect your assets and to save on taxes. It's a great way to go.
So if I could, in conclusion, I would say, if you're an E or an S, all you need is financial planners, and that's about it. And exactly as Scott McPherson says, they're going to sell you stocks, bonds, savings, mutual funds, and get out of debt, because that's all they can sell you. Over here, these are my advisors. I don't have a financial planner per se. What I am is a B and an I, and I play the game a little bit differently. So if you're going to be successful, I strongly suggest knowing the differences there. And because every time I meet a financial planner, they always tell me the same thing. Work hard, save money, get out of debt, invest for long term, and diversify, and naturally buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and things like that, because that's what they sell. And if you're going to be an active investor, you need a different team than people who are passive investors. Is that true?
Absolutely. And if I could just add one little piece of just incredibly good path to follow, is you want to find somebody who is an advisor who has already done for another client what you have done. You don't want to have them learning on your dime. As we have grown more successful, we've had to change certain advisors because we needed advisors who had already been there and had clients bigger than us. You don't want to be that advisor's largest client, because what you're doing is you're paying them to research, not paying them for their knowledge and experience. And it's very important that you make sure your advisors have the expertise in the area that you want to build your business or your personal life.
As I got wealthier, I had to change my advisors and things like this, so I pay more, but their advice is more important. If you're poor, any advice will do. Okay. So that's the big difference here. So let's have a big hand for our advisors. I'm going to go into right now what I think is a very important subject for any investor, and that is one of the ways I make a lot of money is watching this right here. It's a thing called trends. And as I said, I didn't do well in school most of the time because I was bored, but there was two subjects I really enjoyed in school. One of them was history, which is trending, and second was wood shop. And when most of my classmates were building salad bowls for Mom, I built an 8-foot El Toro sailboat, and that's how I got an A for that. But I'm going to be talking to you today about what I consider one of the biggest trends and why America, and not only America, but many of the world right now, we have this massive problem between poor and poverty and this growing gap between the haves and have-nots. But I'd like to show you the shift in the world today from socialism to capitalism. So let's go back in time. In 1929, the stock market crashed. This affected my mom and dad because it led to the Depression. So how many people know people who grew up during the Depression? How many people know them because they wanted job security and pensions? Really, really a lot. And that's really affected their thinking. So then 1929, after that, led to 1933, and it led to the New Deal, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he came out with the New Deal in Social Security. Interestingly enough, in 1933, Hitler came to power also. Now, this is why it's so important. As I said right now, savers are losing their losing their savings. The reason this is so important is because Hitler came to power because the middle class had their savings wiped out. And the same thing is happening right now, is that if 401ks and pensions don't work and savings don't work, it may bring rise to another type of political party. So in 1933, two guys were elected, FDR, Hitler. And the other thing that's interesting is on the cash flow game, as I said, in 1933, this is what they formed here, was called I call the fast track. And in 1933, a man named Joseph Kennedy, father of John Kennedy, created this here, investments only for the rich here, because they wanted to separate the poor and middle class from getting into the better investments or the riskier investments. So that's why 1933 is a very important year. The next year is 1943, as we said, the Current Tax Payment Act. Because we were in World War II at the time, and the federal government needed so much money,
last year of secondary school principals, administrators, and I had a man come up to the table to our booth, and he was livid. He was a principal of school. He says, "This is what's wrong with our school system. We're playing games. We should be teaching them reading and writing and arithmetic." And I'm going, please play it. The same guy now has ordered games for his district. So again, reading and writing is at the bottom, and that's still what we're doing in our school system. At the very top, doing the real thing, taking action, doing the real thing in life. And what's right below it? Simulating the real thing, playing the game, playing cash flow. When I saw this, I stopped the meeting we were having at Arizona State University, called Robert and said, "Robert, you will not believe what I've just seen. This is going to be the beginning, the middle, and the end of Teach to Be Rich, because it validates his life of teaching."
As I said, games, I mean, I saw a completely different world playing Monopoly. You know, by just playing Monopoly, suddenly I saw the way that I could become rich. And it had nothing to do with school and all this. It's not to say that reading and lecture are not important, but it's to say this is the way we learn the most. You know, I've learned by playing games. And then right before that is real life. So that's why we recommend you play the cash flow game 3 or 4 times and teach it to 10 people before you start playing with real life money. The last thing I want to say about real life is this. One of the reasons A students are not successful in the real world, not all of them, but a lot of them aren't, is because what they learn in school down here is not to make mistakes. So they're really afraid of the real world, and they stay in the corporate world, the world of academia. How many people know people who went to school at age 5 and they're still in school today? You know, that was my poor dad. He only did well in school, so he stayed there. He had no idea what the real world was about because he was afraid of making mistakes. So that's how it affects the whole thing. So when you read, when you get to this book here, you can study this cone of learning right now, but you can see the worst ways of learning are reading and lecture, and the best ways of playing games and by doing the real thing. And that's why we created the cash flow game, was to not only for you to learn, but to help other people learn. Because when you play a game, it's mental, emotional, physical, as well as spiritual learning. Because it involves all of your senses. So
it's also why this product, Teach to Be Rich, is going to be a larger book. It's going to include the DVDs that we are recording with you today. It's because we want to walk the talk. It's experiential learning. And experiential learning is simulating the real thing and then doing it and learning from your mistakes.
Yeah. I'd like to bring one of my best friends, Blair Singer, because you have a son who's like me in school, right?
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah. Why don't you tell him what's happened to him?
Well, Ben is one of these 10-year-old boys in school that have a hard time sitting still. Has anybody here ever met one? And as a result of that, he's had difficulty in some of the traditional reading, writing, and math stuff at school. As a result, we've had him play, we played cash flow game with him, the kids version, but he got a little bored with that and decided that he wanted to play the adult version. And I have to tell you right now that my son Ben has probably played the cash flow adult version of the game at least 20 or 25 times. He typically gets out of the rat race in about 20 minutes.
Most adults takes 4 hours if ever.
Takes 4 hours. But what's interesting about it is here was a kid who had a hard time with reading, special programs, the teachers had concern, problems with math, all of this stuff. But what he learned in the cash flow game is he now, when doing the financial statements, we actually took the financial statement to his reading coach, and they said, who wrote this out for him? They go, he did it. Because he's doing it, his writing is legible, his math is perfect. He went from, actually, I didn't tell you this, he actually went from doing, he's in 5th grade, went from doing 4th grade level math, he's not doing 7th grade level math because it has relevance to him now. And True. But the biggest win, here's a kid who really had, as all 10-year-olds, really, their view of themselves is very, very important. And sometimes when he gets a little beat up on the soccer field or a little bit beat up by the kids that are supposedly smarter, he comes back and he wants to play the cash flow game. Because out of the cash flow game, in listening to us talk, he takes his allowance money and he goes out and he buys silver.
He saves silver, not currency.
Not currency. And so what happens is he comes back and because his friends that did something to him, and he goes, but they don't have silver. So, you know, some people say that, you know, about money and self-esteem and all that stuff, but what we observe, my wife Eileen and I observe with our son, is his ability to really manifest something through this game in the real world has done light years for his self-esteem. In a world where he's been persecuted because he wasn't smart enough, not attentive enough, too good of a salesperson, so he's considered disruptive in school if you're a good salesperson, is that he found a place where, as you talk about, that he has financial genius. And in working with his class, and we do a couple events there, he actually stood in front of the room in front of 50 4th, 5th, and 6th graders and explained to them the purpose of knowing your math, because if you bought silver at $7.25 and now it's $8.50, how much money did I make? He says in front of the room. Right. So that's a testimony to games in a world where reading and lecture has always been pride, is you got to handle that first. And in the case of Ben, the game comes first.
Right. So thank you. That's what So again, that's why I created this product, but I'd like to end with this thought. And my thought is this, that every single one of us has a genius. Okay? And as I said earlier, it was only until I went to school that I think I was stupid. I didn't know I was stupid until I went to school, and the teacher started labeling me that. And I started looking at that, I said, this is really quite, you know, ridiculous. And it was my rich dad again who really kind of helped me with it and all this. He says, you know, there's people with different kinds of geniuses, but we all have one. Let me say it this way. Every animal has a special advantage. For instance, a cheetah can run fast, a bird can fly, and a cockroach you cannot kill. You know, everything... Every one of God's creatures has a special genius, something unique that's for them. So if a cockroach has one, why not you? You know, I mean, that's the way I look at it. So my poor dad, who was a school teacher, you know, also said to me, my poor dad didn't like school either. He was trying to protect our genius. He says, what the word genius comes from is genie in us. It's that magic. It's where we do something that's different than everybody else. And I want to say this much, for me personally, my genius, if I could say this, my genius did not come out in school. It was crushed in school. I do not do well with reading and lecture. Also, my genius does not come out in the corporate world. I do not like climbing the corporate ladder. I don't like to say hello, yes sir, no sir, I'll do as you tell me, sir. I don't like what they pay me. I don't like their benefit plans. So my genius didn't do well in the corporate world. Some people do. The definition of intelligence is for you to be smart enough or intelligent enough to find that spot in the world where your genius comes out. And let me explain that. Your genius is dependent upon the environment you're in. As I said, my genius didn't do well in school and didn't do well in the corporate world. My genius does well on the street. My genius does well in real estate. I do well as an entrepreneur, but not as a corporate guy. I don't get along with them too well. I'm a different kind of character. Does that make sense to you? So we can understand this. Tiger Woods has a genius. But Tiger Woods' genius comes out in the environment of the golf course. You ever watch that guy pick up the club? That's where his genius comes out. If he was a jockey, he would not be a genius there. So you have to find the environment where your genius comes out, because every one of us has one. Mick Jagger went to school to be an accountant. But he found his genius as a what? Rolling Stone. And so the message I want to leave with each and every one of you is that you have a genius. If you look at this picture up here on the plasma, see, every child has one. It's that magic. It's that thing that they know that nobody else knows. It's that special gift that every child is born with. And the problem with school is it crushes the genius of kids who do not respond well to reading and lecture. So if you look at it this way, this here is what your environment looks like. You know, like I said, I didn't do well in school. I didn't do well in the corporate world, but I do well on the streets. I do well in real estate. I don't do well in picking stocks. I don't do well with bonds. I don't do well with mutual funds. That's not where my genius lies. So your job, ladies and gentlemen, is have the courage and the wherewithal to go out and find that spot in the world when you rub the magic lamp, your environment, your genius comes out. Where that is, I don't know, but may you have the courage to find it. If you do as our school system teaches you, which is to go to school and look for a safe, secure what? Job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, diversify, and invest for the long term, you'll probably never find your genius. That make sense, you guys here? So may you find your genius, because each and every one of you has it. It is only crushed when you don't have the courage to find it. It doesn't mean your genius is easy to find. Look at Tiger Woods. He busts his you-know-what to find his genius. Look at Oprah Winfrey. You know, she's been in front of television and she works really hard to be successful at that. Too many people think that just because it's your genius, it should be easy. Lazy people really don't get ahead. I have no respect for lazy people because I'm among the laziest people I know. I never thought that my genius would lie in education because I hated school so much. But the moment I started to teach outside the system, I noticed that people's lives were changing. But not just that, I'm not saying I'm the best teacher, but I make more money than most teachers. And so the world will reward you if you have the courage to give your gift, your genius. Does that make sense, you guys here? It's very, very important. So in closing, if I could say this, that I'm not saying do real estate. And I'm not saying do what do you call that, entrepreneurship. But some of you may find your genius as an employee. Some of you may find it as a self-employed person. Mine just happened to be over here. Because a guy named Jim Cramer on CNBC, his genius is picking stocks. That guy is a genius at that. He shouldn't do real estate. Buffett says, why should I do real estate when stocks are so easy? So the point here, ladies and gentlemen, just don't follow blindly like a pack of sheep. Invest for the long term, diversify, save money, get out of debt, and turn your money over to so-called experts. You have a genius, so does your children, so the people around you. The reason I want you to play the cash flow game and study is so that you can find your genius. But like I said, it takes some work for it to come out because you have a gift. The most important thing is find out what really works for you, not what I say. Does that make sense, you guys here? So rub that magic lamp, that environment. It could be in church. It could be as a poet. It could be as a gardener. Who cares? It's where your genius comes out. And when you find that, your life, I think you'll find your life more abundant and happier. There's nothing worse than somebody who's working because their parents told them to do it or because you make a lot of money at it. That's when people go postal. You know, they have a job security with the post office department. And they really cannot stand it because they've bought somebody else's program here. So, as I said, I'm not pushing stocks, bonds, real estate, entrepreneurship, and all this. But really, my whole message is to find that genius. Because as Warren Buffett, the world's greatest investor, says, it's a very important quote. Happily, there's more than one way to get to financial heaven. And ladies and gentlemen, may you find that way that works best for you. Thank you very much.